Hello, I'm Oceana, and this is Explore Within Coaching. So, I want to ask you something. Do you find yourself saying yes to other people, taking your time, your energy, or giving yourself away at the expense of yourself? I know I did. Um, Actually, I don't think I know of a single person that hasn't or doesn't still do that. It took me a long time to figure out that when I was saying this yes, and I should have been saying no, that I was actually doing it from a place of fear. I was afraid people wouldn't like me. I did it from a place of lack. I was afraid and concerned that if I said no to that extra shift, that I wouldn't have enough money to survive. I did it because I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel worthy of people's love, of people's respect. And so I continued to give myself away at the expense of me. I'm going to talk to you about boundaries and setting them. And first, I want you to understand I kind of look at boundaries like riding a bicycle or learning to ride a bicycle. So, when I was a kid, I had this bike. I had no training wheels. Gosh, training wheels would have been fantastic. But I didn't have training wheels, I just had a bike. And I would get up on this bike and I would try to pedal. And of course, I didn't have center of balance, I'd fall over. And I'd get back up on that bike and I'd keep trying again and I would fall over. I had plenty of scraped knees, I had bruises, I had band aids, but I also learned how to ride a bike. And I learned how to ride the bike because I kept going back and I kept going at it until I figured it out, until I learned. And so setting boundaries is very much the same. You're going to stumble when you start, and that's okay. It's like getting back and doing it again and again and again. That repetition that is going to allow for you to learn how to set healthy boundaries for yourself. So I'm going to go over the list of 10 things or 10 ways to set boundaries or to identify boundaries. And they're going to sound really simple and really easy. They're not. They take time, they take practice, and they take commitment. So give yourself some grace while you're learning. So the first step in setting healthy boundaries is learning to name your limits. Those are the areas in your life in which you need to set the boundaries. They could be at your work, they could be in your relationship, they could be with your dog, they could be, it doesn't matter. It's anywhere in your life that you feel out of balance or that you feel that you're giving yourself away at the expense of yourself. Write it down and just keep adding to the list until you feel comfortable and confident that you've got all areas of your life covered that you feel out of balance. The next one is going to be tuning into your feelings. Our feelings are our first indicating factor that boundaries need to be set. I remember a friend calling me up. I'd had a really long week. I was exhausted. I had dealt with people all week. I felt burnt out. I just, all I wanted to do was sit in my pajamas and watch a movie. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to do anything. And a friend called me up and said, "Hey, we're going out dancing tonight. Are you ready?" And I'm like, yeah. The truth was is I wasn't ready. I wasn't anywhere near being ready. So I got changed and I, brushed my hair and went out to the bar and went dancing. And I was exhausted. And I put on a smile, but I wasn't really having fun. This was a clear indication. My whole body and being was telling me I needed to say no. And I didn't. And I did, and I didn't because I was afraid that my friend wouldn't call me up next time and invite me out. So tune into those feelings. They're going to be your indicators as to where boundaries need to be set. Next, you need to be direct and you need to express what's going on. So had I said to my friend, "Look, I've had a really tough week and the last thing I want to do is see another human. I really need to just stay home and take care of myself," she would have said okay. She would have said, have a good night and take care of yourself. We'll talk tomorrow. All I needed to do was be direct about what it was that I needed, and then to ask for it. That's not to say that every time we ask, the answer is going to be yes. Sometimes the answer is going to be no. That's another ball of wax. We'll deal with that later. Next, you need to give yourself permission. You need to give yourself permission to fail. And you need to give yourself permission to succeed. When you're learning to set boundaries, you're going to have setbacks. It's inevitable, but it's okay. Just get back up on that bike, so to speak, and keep trying. And pretty soon you're going to find that you're having great success because you gave yourself permission to fall back. You gave yourself the grace to make mistakes and to try again. Number 5 is to practice self-awareness. This is really, really important. If we aren't aware what's happening inside of us, it's really, really hard to set a boundary. Now, what I mean is that's that whole tuning into your feelings. You need to have self-awareness to identify the feelings you're feeling. Make sense? So you need to practice this. This isn't something that just automatically comes and somebody just wakes up and they're born and they're just like, I am a self-aware being. No, we're conditioned beings. We are taught and we are products of our environment. So it takes practice to start becoming self-aware and taking responsibility for what we find. Number 6 is considering your past and considering your present. I just said it. We are all products of our upbringing. We are a product of our environment. So if you were brought up in a household where it wasn't safe to say no, where you weren't allowed to express your feelings, where you were expected to give away your time and your energy without any thought or consequence of yourself, of course you don't know how to. So give yourself that grace. Go back to the giving yourself permission. It's okay. And you can make a change and you can be different. Next, and one of my favorites, is making self-care a priority. When you're taking care of yourself, it becomes really easy to see where you're not taking care of yourself. I do this. I'm really good about making sure that I'm going to bed at a decent hour, eating my healthy meals, and getting up at a good time. And again, repeating the cycle: go to bed at a good time, get plenty of sleep, get plenty of exercise, get blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, I find myself sucked in to this vacuum of working too hard, burning my candle at both ends, and getting exhausted. Well, it's through this practice of self-care that I've been able to identify where I'm starting to slip and starting to fall back into burning the candle at both ends, which helps bring me back to the present, which allows me to start setting boundaries so that I'm respecting myself, I'm respecting my energy. So again, if you start making self-care a priority, you're going to be able to identify where your boundaries are not being met very quickly. Seek support. I told you a little bit about learning how to ride a bike without training wheels. I didn't do that by myself. I had an older sister. I had a mom. I had a dad. I had a friend. I had people holding on to the back of that seat while I was learning how to center my balance and learn to pedal the bike. It was with the support of my family and my friends that I learned how to ride a bike. And boundaries are the exact same thing. You need to set up a support system so that when you're learning to set a boundary, you have somebody to practice it with. You can have the conversation with that person. You can, find out, you can troubleshoot. Troubleshoot is my favorite thing. You can troubleshoot what's going on so that you can identify where you need to set that boundary. Support is what's going to make your boundaries successful? You need to be assertive. It's really easy when you first start setting boundaries to be very aggressive, this is my limit and that's it. It's an indication to another that they can still trample it, that you're not secure in it. Being assertive in the boundary is a very different energy that is given off. So for example, I'll use going out for a cup of coffee. Yeah, I'm going to use going out for a cup of coffee. So you're exhausted and your best friend calls you up and says, hey, let's go for coffee. You can be aggressive and go, I don't want to go for coffee. Why would I just want to, don't you know I had a hard day? No. All that tells your friend is that you're angry and that you're taking it out on them. Or you can be assertive and say, I don't feel like going for coffee tonight. How about tomorrow? Or next week, or whenever it is that it's going to feel good for you. There's a different energy behind it. The no with the anger and the resentment behind it is an indication that you're not actually solidly in that belief. The no, I just don't feel like it, is very clear. So being assertive is going to help people respect your boundaries a lot clearer. And it's also going to make you a lot more confident in the boundary that you've set, because there's just no room around it. It's a non-negotiable. When you are assertive in what your boundaries are, they become non-negotiables to other people. When you're aggressive in your boundaries, they are something that can be tested. So assertive boundaries equals non-negotiable. Aggressive boundaries means let's test it. What do you want? Number 10, and the most important thing when you're first learning how to set boundaries, is starting small. And I'm serious. Like, if you try to go for the highest peak of that mountain and deal with everything that's ever caused you resentment in your entire life, you are going to stumble and fall down that mountain. So start in a place where you can have a success. One of the very first boundaries that I ever set was not answering my phone past 9 p.m. I had friends that would call me up at 2 o'clock in the morning just because they were up and wanted to talk. I had to be up at 6 in the morning to go to work. And yet I would find myself answering my telephone and talking to a friend. Not a good situation for me or my employer, actually. So I set the boundary that I was not going to answer my phone after 9 p.m. I then let my social circle know that I'm not accepting calls after 9 p.m. unless they are of an emergency. An emergency meant somebody was dying, somebody's been in an accident, or you are in trouble and you need help immediately. And that wasn't boy trouble. That was like your life is on the line kind of trouble. So I set the boundary, and I think it was like 2 nights later, I get a phone call. It's 11:30 at night. It's a Friday. I see that it is a friend of mine, and I picked up the phone and I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, oh yeah, I'm fine. I just wanted to chat. I'm like, it's past 9 p.m. I don't accept personal calls, or I don't accept any calls after 9 p.m. unless they're of an emergency. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And I hung up. That was a scary thing to do, to hang up. I was afraid she was going to be mad. I was afraid that, she was going to yell at me or hate me, all those things. But something else happened instead. I called her back the next day, and the first thing she did was apologize because she had forgotten that I didn't take calls after 9 p.m. She apologized. She wasn't mad at me. It's like, okay, that was a win. Yeah, I got a call after 9 p.m. But I stayed true to my boundary. So that started many, many years ago. It's now, I can't even count how many years. But to this day, I don't get calls past 9 p.m. Unless they're emergencies. And as a result, I get to have my downtime and relax and rest before I go to bed so that I can have a fantastic day the following morning. Okay, so I've been babbling on for a while. I just want to quickly go over again what the 10 steps are. The first one is you're going to name your limits. 2, you're going to tune into your feelings. 3, you're going to be direct and express. 4, you're going to give yourself permission. 5, you're going to practice self-awareness. 6, you're going to consider your past and your present. Number 7, you're going to make self-care a priority. Number 8, seek support. Number 9, be assertive. And number 10, you're going to start small so that you have amazing success on the big boundaries too. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe, be good to one another, and love yourself a little more each day.